What's going on, guys? This is Hassan from the Spiritual Walks, and I hope everyone is doing amazing. The weather is lovely today, slightly windy, so do forgive me on the audio quality at times. But today I wanted to talk about self-reflection. Self-reflection is really slept on. Sometimes we maneuver through this life feeling confused, lost, or just as though certain matters don't make any sense. And this is where self-reflection comes in. But we don't do it. Perhaps a part of us wants to escape the self-reflection element, because it's not always comfortable to see certain aspects, certain perspectives of ourselves in a particular angle, to discover certain truths of ourselves. It's not always the most desirable thing to do. So we tend to distract ourselves, put it off, and all that happens is the confusion continues to grow and grow. Alan Watts has a really beautiful analogy on this. He once mentioned that when you look at a newspaper, an image or writings on a newspaper through a microscope, what you see is randomly scattered dots that don't make any sense at all. And so trying to figure out what these dots are there for within that perspective of the microscopic lens just doesn't make sense. And so it's confusion upon confusion. But when you see it with the naked eye, without the microscopic lens, you see how what was once in a perspective of randomly scattered dots, it comes together to make a beautiful picture. And in that shift of perspective, it makes total sense. And so self-reflection is exactly that. It's to take the initial reflection or the initial focus of one particular lens. It's essentially to take a break from that, put that aside for a moment. And so self-reflection is looking at life through the naked eye. And so how do you do self-reflection then? How do we put it down? How do we put that microscopic lens down? Well, let's consider this. We go through life also seeking particular experiences. Like we set aside some time to go ahead and travel the world. We go ahead, go to a different country, chill on the beach, get a tan. Essentially, what we call this is we switch off for a bit from work, from the daily routine that we're very embedded in. And so what you're really doing here, using the same sort of analogy of the microscopic lens, you're kind of letting go of the zoom of the microscopic lens. You're still viewing life through the microscopic lens, but the zoom kind of loosens up, and the reaction or the immediate response of the zoom loosening up is a breath of fresh air. It's refreshing. It's relaxing. It kind of feels as though we are being recharged. Self-reflection does the exact same thing, except it takes it from a different angle. Instead of trying to change the zoom of the lens, or in better terms, the magnification of the microscopic lens, it's there to make you realize that you're holding the lens in the first place, and that you're looking through life through the lens in the first place. And once that is realized, in the immediate moment, there is the question of, okay, what happens if I put this down for a moment? What do I see? And it's immediate at times, sometimes gradual. But self-reflection, we ask ourselves a series of questions. So let's enter this. Let's try this for the next couple of minutes. Let's see what sort of questions we can ask ourselves. One particular question I like to ask myself in any moment of life, whenever I am caught up in the microscopic image or perspective, I would ask myself, I'll pause, look around and say, where am I? Where is all this? It seems blasphemous to ask. It seems weird to ask this particular question because this is the local park. I live right next to this park. So for me to ask, where am I? If someone heard me ask this question, apart from you, I hope, they'd think I'm a lunatic. Why? Like, you've lived here for years. But we're not asking it from that particular angle. We are looking at it from a more fundamental place. Where am I? Okay, yes, this is a local park, but no, where am I really? Where am I? And so, when we ask a question like this, let's see how thoughts interfere. Particular thoughts will come in and try to interfere. So when we ask, where am I? There is the immediate observation of where one is, of where you are. And subsequently, a thought is triggered. Now, the beauty is that we have a choice as to whether we subscribe to that thought or not. So, when I ask myself, where am I? And the immediate thought is the local park. This is where you grew up. This is where you've spent a lot of your life, playing football, running around. You know where you are. But as that thought comes up, I'm not rejecting it, but neither am I accepting it. It's a thought, just like the clouds moving across the sky. Okay? So we refer back to the initial observation and observe alone. I hope you are with me on this. So then as we dive deeper into this, where am I? And then there's this initial observation, and there's these thoughts that try to intervene to change the perspective. Because when I ask myself the fundamental where am I, the real where are you, the fundamental where are you, when I ask myself this question, the initial observation feels somewhat less familiar than what the thought would portray as the local park. You are sitting here, you grew up here. And that unfamiliarity can create discomfort. And so immediately we subscribe to the thought that is familiar to remain comfortable. Now, when we first do this, it's an immediate process. The observation and the subsequent thought and the subscription to that thought is instantaneous. But as we continue to do this every now and then, what starts to happen is there's that initial observation, and then maybe a second or two later there is the thought. And then there is the sense of powerlessness to having to subscribe to that thought. But then eventually, we begin to see that we have the choice as to whether we subscribe or not to the immediate thought. Okay? And once we see that we have this choice, we choose not to in one of these reflections. And when we choose not to, it is the equivalent of saying, hey, I'm holding this microscopic lens. Shall I put it down now? And how beautiful is this? Because if we look at the initial observation, where am I? Where is this? With that initial observation, if we have chosen not to subscribe to any thought that comes up, we have not localized and honed in and zoomed in and focused into one perspective. So right now, when I ask myself, where am I? with the initial observation, there is also several subsequent thoughts now. Because when you choose one of these thoughts, all of the other ones kind of diminish. They become less important. And so we don't realize the perspectives that these other thoughts or judgments may hold. So now, not subscribing to one of these holds a different array of perspectives. Where am I? Yes, the local park where I grew up. Where am I? In London. Where am I? On a field of grass. Where am I? On planet Earth. Where am I? On this ball of mud flying through space. Where am I? And so now we see that there are multiple answers and none of them are wrong. None of them are wrong. But it's just that we have chosen not to go with the most familiar one. And we just observe the rapid fire answers that come up. But eventually there comes a point when we ask a question, we just observe. We see it with the naked eye. No microscopic view. And that's where it makes sense. It all just falls together. It makes sense. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that this helps you in some way. If there is that sense of confusion, or if it just, life doesn't make existential sense to you. Yes, you have your daily routines, you have your duties to fulfill in life. And sometimes in the back of your head, you kind of don't know why it makes sense. And so I hope that this video gives you a stepping stone or encourages you to do more self-reflection. See you next week.